This is Post Ugly. I'm Ruth Solorzano. The concept of gaslighting came into view after the 1944 film starring Ingrid Bergman, Gaslight, originally adapted from a play known as Angel Street.
Where did you find that?
In the film, Bergman's character is lied to repeatedly, obviously, and systemically by her husband,
You're not going out of your mind. You're slowly and systematically being driven out of your mind.
along with a number of falsehoods that make her question her sanity. She's told the gas lights in the house are not dimming, when they clearly
You
are.
thought I was being cruel to you. Keeping people away
not
from
cruel.
you. Making you a prisoner.
Oh, you're the kindest man in the world.
The term didn't gain traction until the 1960s, but has recently made a resurgence in numerous political articles and was even a runner-up for Oxford Dictionary's 2018 Word of the Year. The Journal of Humanistic Psychology defines gaslighting as a conscious or unconscious form of psychological abuse that occurs when a perpetrator distorts information to confuse a victim, triggering the victim to doubt their memory and sanity.
What you have to think about is gaslighting happens in many different capacities. I've seen it, of course, in intimate relationships, which is the most common, but I've seen it in family relationships quite a bit, mother to daughter, father to son. And I've also seen it in work relationships.
This is our residential guest speaker, Dr. Christy Jenkins from the Family and Child Abuse Prevention Center. We'll hear more from her later. One of the many insidious things about gaslighting, it's usually done gradually, over time. Deciphering through the lies and deceit can prove to be maddening, especially when you don't have the tools to begin with.
So I'm from the Dominican Republic, and we came here in 1981. December 24, to be exactly, 1981. My dad was not part of our lives that much. He didn't really see us a lot. But when we came here to the United States, it was my sister and I. My dad has other families, multiple, that we never really knew about them because my dad was already married to somebody else. And so we never close. Then when I was about 14, no, it wasn't 14, it was about 15. Started dating a guy and who was just a year older than me. And so I became pregnant when I was 16, actually right before my birthday. That was in New York, by the way. We moved to California when Ruthie was 3 years old. Shortly after I became pregnant with my son, I was trying to go to college and all that, but I couldn't because I had the two of them. And so I started working at a title company, which it was really good because I started growing. And everything was okay, but my ex-husband, he was doing drugs. And so it got worse to the level that he was selling it as well. He lost his job somehow and kind of just got worse, and he just started going down. To cut the long story short, he was incarcerated. This time, I had another younger daughter, like 5 years after that. So I told him that he couldn't live with us anymore. So he left, got angry, did a lot of things to kind of jeopardize me and the kids. Unfortunately, at that time, I also was working at the title company, and I met someone. This guy was supported of emotionally at the time. It's one of those things that you feel like, oh, this is a person who is have my back, and we're able to kind of like be there every time I needed a ride because my ex, we used to have two cars, one that I couldn't drive because it was a stick shift, and the other one was a automatic. And when he left, he took both cars because it was under his name. So I didn't have transportation, take my kids to school, to the babysitter. So this person who I met, he was there. He was available for me, and so obviously the relationship started happening. This person who was everything at the time, it was the only support that I had, and it was kind of like too much in a way.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I like I said, I had my own apartment, I had my kids, and he just convinced me that should move in with him. Like maybe I think it was even less than a year or a year. So I didn't know him as much as should have had, but he convinced me to move in because it was easier for him, because we used to work together. So we, said, well, we can take the kids to school and drop them off to the babysitter and then go to work. And I said, well, yeah, it makes sense. And we live together. The problem with that, more than that, and was just annoying too, that I now realize, is that he also lived with his brother and his newly wedded wife in an apartment of 2 bedroom. This apartment of 2 bedroom, obviously, they didn't know that me and 3 other people, my kids, which are kids, they were gonna make noise. So I had to keep everybody quiet because it was horrible. Because the landlord didn't know that we moved there. Now, this person as well had 3 daughters in California, but they lived in LA. So he used to go see them, because we were in that apartment so restricted. It was making me feel like I was not free to do a lot of things. And because my oldest daughter was the oldest, she needed to get out and to do things. I allowed her to go to Los Angeles, where his daughter lived, with him. Then we moved again.
In 2019, the American Sociological Association published a journal on the sociology of gaslighting. Gaslighting is not only a psychological issue, but also a social phenomenon. Though engaging in abusive mental manipulation involves psychological dynamics, the power of certain social characteristics can actually give gaslighting its fuel. Gaslighting is effective when it is rooted in social inequities, especially gender and sexuality. It can be executed in power-laden, intimate relationships and prove devastating.
We bought a house, and then when we bought the house, he was like, oh, this is going to be our home, da da da. And then for some reason, his family has been in a religious, I would say, kind of like a cult. I'm not saying that everybody was kind of the same, because I know there's a lot of respectful churches, but this was different. It was a Seventh-day Adventist belief system.
The Seventh-day Adventist Church is a Protestant Christian denomination founded by a group of Millerites who believed that the second coming of Christ would happen October 22nd, 1844. Afterwards, they adopted a different set of teachings and came to the conclusion that the second coming could not be predicted. Along with the Bible, both New Testament and Old, they follow the teachings of Ellen G. White, who proclaimed to have visions and prophecies from God, from which they created what they call the 28 fundamental beliefs. A variety of groups, movements, and subcultures within the church present differing views on beliefs and lifestyle.
And they very strict. We became very strict on the religion. Some of the things that we did with the kids was like my oldest one. He convinced me that it was going to be better for her to be out of the school system and to do homeschooling. because there was a lot of going on in the world, and she was going to lose herself, because kids are mean. And so she just started going to homeschool, because he just told me that it was just going to be better for her, because otherwise, the corruption of the school system. And I believed it. Like, yeah, that makes sense. And I say, but I mean, she's not gonna have friends, and then you just don't want her to become like a worldly person. So I was just like, okay, this is okay. So I accepted that. Meanwhile, my other two, they were still little, and I couldn't stay home to do homeschooling with them. But my oldest one at this time, she was able to handle it in my head better than my other two. And my oldest one, I think she just became different and very quiet for a long time. And it was just, everything she mentioned, she was just quiet. And I felt really like, what's going on, but I didn't know anything. And then one day she told me this person saw her taking a shower. She was scared. And I would just, instead of pulling her on the side, which I should have had, I asked her in front of him, and he just like, he denied it. Obviously, I just wanted to make sure that nobody can come here and see her. And I was just like, well, why were you there? He said, because of that. I mean, at that time, it makes kind of sense to me, because I feel like somebody can just come in my house and do something when nobody's here during the day.
The techniques that are happening in gaslighting happen in an abusive situation or with emotional abuse, psychological abuse. There's a lot of just outright denial. So denying that they said something or that they did something, or they accuse their partner of making something up, when it's quite the opposite. It's the person who is gaslighting the other person who's doing these things. There's a lot of diversion, so changing the focus and questioning the victim's responsibility, credibility in these matters. So they might even put it on someone else that they're close to. Lastly, one of the biggest things is using words as weapons. So you're in a relationship, you're in an intimate relationship, and you love this person, because oftentimes folks who gaslight other folks have sort of like a split personality, the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of stuff. So you can see how good someone could be at times. And so you fall for that over and over again, because it's not always bad all the time. And so they present a good sense of themselves. And there's lots of feelings associated with that. So you doubt your judgment and your perception, so you just stay silent. You feel vulnerable and insecure, so you're walking on eggshells all the time, and your self-esteem is just down the drain. You're feeling alone and powerless.
We stopped going to church altogether. We did the services in the home. So it was a lot of like, oh, let's just pray. And my kids needed to be straight. And like if they couldn't move or do something, they were bad. If they moved, if they didn't pray or whatever, they didn't kneel, they were bad. And I was not a good mom, because I'm not giving them the structure that they needed. That's what he told me many times, and he made me feel that way, because the things that he said, it just like this kind of manipulation, that it was like, I'm not a good mom because I didn't let my daughter have fun. I wasn't a good mom because my other kids were just all over the place, just wanted to play and not listening to him. When he said stop, you had to read this, or stop making noise, or they were just losing concentration when we were praying, or reading, or just or felt bored, or didn't want to get up early in the morning to pray and do things like that. They're not listening. They're just not good. So it was just like a lot of guilt, a lot of like feeling like you're not doing the right thing. And so yeah, so there was a lot of that. Piece was that we lost the house. We lost the house because of religious reasons. Supposedly we were gonna go move back out of the country to his country, which I didn't know nothing about, because the world is corrupted, and we needed to live in the countryside where we can grow our own things, and we did all these things that it was healthier for you to do, and be closer to God and be able to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to pray and go to sleep at 6 when the sun goes down. He makes me feel like this is what was good, you know, this is what it needed to be done. I didn't wear pants, I didn't wear makeup, I didn't do my hair like I usually do my hair, where I used to take care of my hair, everything before. We were vegetarians, so it was a lot of changes. So I did, and I wanted to be good. I wanted to be a person that has respectful for God and all of that. Which I mean, I don't have anything against people who believe on those belief system, but I just find out that a lot of it is also very manipulative. Or at least that was for me. We lost the house, so we went to a 1 bedroom apartment, a 2 bedroom, which is obviously there's no privacy because it was so small. So we used to sleep in the living room a lot of because it's, like a camping thing, and it make it fun. Like, oh, let's just do this. But it was at first it was only on the weekend, and then it became like a daily thing. And I said, wait a minute, I want my privacy. At this point, we were married now. I have my husband. I want my privacy with him, but he wasn't having it. He was not having. No, you don't want to be around the kids. You know that they love to be outside, to be and sleep together, like camping because it's fun. So it was just every day. It became an everyday thing. There's no privacy between two us. So we didn't have any sex. We just were there. And then the word that he used to tell me all the time, which is a word that I began to kind of just let it go now. But before, it was just very a trigger for me. It's like, I don't know. I don't know. That's the word that he used in everything. So we didn't have sex for a long time. I would say a couple of years with an I don't know excuse. And I was just like, what's going on? But I don't know what's the excuse.
Often folks question their own memories. Like an abuser might say, I don't think it happened that way, and really make the person think like, well, did it happen that way? I'm not sure that it happened that way. They might refuse to have a conversation with them, so they just kind of shut down any sort of communication, like, I don't know what you're talking about, kind of thing. And so then a victim might feel very dismissed.
And at this time, my job was close to the apartment, or our job, because we just still work together. And then it was going to move a little bit farther, and I'm like, I'm not going to be able to take my kids to school. So, what do you want to do? Let me know. Do you want to move in together, get a house together, or something bigger near, so we can have our own room? Because we used to make good money. Or should I just move in by myself? So I say, I'm just gonna have to look for a place for me and the kids, because obviously this is going nowhere. And that's how it went. I thought she might have had a change of heart or anything. Nope. I moved. He stayed in the apartment, and I moved with my 3 kids, and we were just in our own place. I stayed married with him even after a year of leaving, because my hopes in my head, it was to get the relationship back together, because obviously we got married, and but then again we had to talk about what's going on, and he never really did. And at that time we moved to a house, a small house with my kids, and my daughter, she just started kind of getting away from there, from that, not going out with him, because she just didn't feel like, I don't know what was going on. I was just like, and we were still working together. And oh, and my daughter also was working with us. She started working with us at the same place. So they used to go out of break together, they do lunch together. And at this time, we still were married. And nobody from work knew that we were not together, because in my head, we were going to work on the relationship. Well, it didn't work out. And 1 year after, I was talking to somebody else that I knew from work. And he said, why are you still married? You're not giving yourself an opportunity to meet somebody that really appreciate you. And that made me change my mind. And I just say, you know what? It makes sense. This is not going to go anywhere. It's not like I have a relationship with him. And February 14th, that's when I went to the courthouse and filed for divorce. I remember coming out of the courthouse after filing the paperwork that I spent the whole morning doing, crying, crying, because obviously in my head I had another failure. What is my family gonna think of me? So I was just like crying, and then I could see, when the stands outside the tree with flowers and balloons, da, 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 for Valentine's Day. And I was just like crying the whole way, going back to work, trying to dry my tears, crying. And like, this is the best decision I made, because there's nothing I can do anymore. And that was kind of it. That was kind of it for me with him. And he didn't say anything.
How did the relationship with your daughter turn out?
At the time, I obviously didn't realize how much damage she was to my daughter. I saw her fading away. She just didn't want to be around us. And I didn't know why as much. She went off to college and she just wanted to move, even though we already had, room for her in the place, but she wanted to move, which she did. She just started kind of getting away from me, from my other two kids as well. And that really kind of like split the relationship. It just split the relationship. And at the time, I didn't know what was going on. I thought it was just, oh, yeah, it's a normal thing. And kids leave. But it was more than that. It was more than just want to leave. It's just not wanting to be part of us.
Did you find out why?
I remember one day she came to visit or something, or we went out to IKEA. And I just, for some reason, it came to my mind. You remember that day that happened in the shower? And I just asked her, and she said yes. And she said, no, it was real. And then from there on, I mean, I was just like, I didn't know that it was going to be this much, where she told me that he was raping her, that he did a lot of things to her. And that's how I found out that, he was sexually abusing her. And there was so much going on in rape and abortions. And it was just, we talked about it. We burned all his pictures. We cried about it. And then, she suffered a lot and she has a lot of trauma. It affected us. It affected the way we talk, for many years. I mean, right now it's much better, but for a long time not not good. It was horrible because I love her, and I would have never done that to hurt her, but I did. I did in a way that I didn't know that I was doing that.
How did you move forward?
Well, I don't know. I think it was a lot of I think my foundation was to do the right thing, to be able to be honest and be truthful, but also know that I had to wait until she felt ready to talk to me. Ironically, the time when she went off to college, I started college as well, and learned a lot of different things, and started understanding more. And now what I'm doing right now is, ironically, a lot of people with trauma, a lot of people with sexual abuse and different situations.
Can you tell us what you do for a living?
I'm a licensed clinical social worker, so I'm a therapist, and I work with families and their children, and I work with individuals, and I work with couples, all ages. I mean, from five and up. So this is my way of kind of helping that other people don't go through the same thing, or if they did, kind of be able to have that person to go to and feel safe and know that they can talk to me, helping them move forward in their own life.
Do you have any advice for someone who may think they're being gaslit?
Trust your guts, trust your instinct, what you feel. I'm not saying that all the time is what you feel is the right thing. However, if you know that something is wrong, it's because that might be something is wrong. Talk to somebody that you can trust, somebody that might not be judgmental, or somebody who has been a support for you in a good way, that you feel safe, and I think that can give you an insight to trust your guts, to trust what do you believe is true, what's not. That way you can help yourself move forward in a way of what to do if you find yourself in a situation that is making you feel like a little crazy.
Pay attention to everything. We get so off our game because they say something and you're like, oh, I don't know if that's true or not. And then they say something else and you're like, oh, well, maybe that might be right. And then they say something else and you're like, oh my God, I really am going crazy. I don't remember it that way. And so just stop in all of it. Stop and pay attention to every piece of it. Remember that this is their shame and not yours. Like, they are the one with the problem, and that's so hard to see sometimes, because we tend to fall into these relationships with these folks because we're empathic and we're warm. Believe in yourself and don't let any sort of doubt creep in. Don't have those thoughts in the back of your head. If you're having those thoughts, I'm crazy, I am too sensitive, he does love me, it didn't happen that way. Really stop yourself and think about it and build up your self-esteem, because that is when you are absolutely ripe for the picking. If you are just so downtrodden and you're so lacking in self-esteem and self-worth and assertiveness, you're going to be a better victim to someone who's a gaslighter.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Thank you. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for allowing me to be a mom. I love you.
I love you too, Mom. I'm sorry that happened to you.
There's nothing more in this world that I love to be, and for starting to trust in me again.
Thank you to our residential guest speaker, Dr. Christy Jenkins, who is the CEO of the Family and Child Abuse Prevention Center and core faculty at Walden University. For more information and resources, visit fcapc.org. If you know of a child being abused, please report it to your local Children's Advocacy Center or call 1-800-4-A-CHILD. Original music and sound production by Hugo Fowler. This show is produced and edited by me, Ruth Solorzano. If you like Post Ugly, please follow us on Facebook and Instagram, give us a review and subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. It helps other people find the show. And thank you to our courageous survivor for sharing your story.